about the behavior of individual consumer. The consumer has to decide how to spend her income on different goods. Economists call it as a problem of choice because the resources is limited. Here you can see the income is limited, so they have to make the choice on how to spend on the different goods. Most naturally, the consumer will always want to get a combination of goods that gives her maximum satisfaction. So now what will be the best combination that has to be chosen? This depends on the like and preference of the consumer and also along with the affordability. So the affordability depends upon the income of the consumer and the price of the goods. So now let's understand the consumer behavior approach. The consumer behavior approach can be understood with the help of cardinal utility analysis and ordinal utility analysis. Utility is nothing but the most desirable or the necessity or the want satisfying capacity. Utility is the want satisfying capacity. So the need of the commodity, utility arises due to the need of the commodity or the stronger desire to have it. The more the stronger, the more the higher level of utility. So utility is subjective, it is not objective, it is subjective. Different individual get different level of utility from the same commodity. Example, you can take the example of chocolate. So for somebody, if chocolate is favorite to them, for somebody they don't like chocolate at all. So utility is of two, cardinal utility and ordinal utility. So the utility which can be measured in numbers is called as cardinal utility. The utility which can be expressed in terms of ranks is called as ordinal utility. It is based on the quantity and it is based on the quality. So how we will measure the utility under the cardinal utility analysis? So first we have total utility. Total utility is the total satisfaction derived from the consumption of commodity. So total utility N is the utility derived from the N number of consumption of the commodity. So the formula is TU is equal to sigma, that is total of the marginal utility. Meanwhile, marginal utility is the change in total utility due to consumption of one additional unit of commodity. Formula is marginal utility of N is equals to total utility N minus total utility N minus 1. So under cardinal utility analysis, we will be discussing two theory. One is the law of diminishing marginal utility and one is the indifference curve and the features of and the another is the law of demand. So under ordinal utility analysis, we will be understanding the theory related to indifference curve, indifference map and the features of indifference curve and optimal choice of a consumer. All this theory we will discuss under the ordinal utility analysis. This we will discuss later. First we will finish it off with the cardinal utility analysis. So now what is law of diminishing marginal utility? Example, if you're consuming number of units, okay, first you had one glass of water and then the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. So here what is happening, the total utility is increasing from 12 to 18, 18 to 22, and here we have a saturation point. Once the total utility touch to 0, here the total utility comes into a saturation points. When the marginal utility turns negative, even the total utility also falls. But with every consumption, the marginal utility falls, turns 0 and it becomes negative. So as per this, the diagram is the total utility increases, moves to a saturation point and then falls. The marginal utility and total utility start with the same number, but the total utility increases but the marginal utility falls, turns 0 and then becomes negative. So this is the diagram for the marginal utility, the law of diminishing marginal utility, that every consumption of commodity increases the total utility but the marginal utility diminishes. The utility increase moves to saturation point, the total utility increase moves to saturation point. When mu turns 0 and negative, Tu also falls. Mu and Tu, that is marginal utility and total utility, was same in the beginning, but mu falls, becomes negative and after turning 0. This theory is called as the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now we will understand the derivation of demand curve in the single commodity, which is the law of demand of a single commodity. This is one of your important 6 marks. Even the law of diminishing is also one of the important 6 marks. So cardinal utility can be used to derive demand curve of a commodity. Before understanding demand curve, we need to understand what is demand. Demand is nothing but the quantity of commodity consumer is willing to buy and is able to afford is called as demand. So when the consumer is able to afford in the given price of the good, and also he is able to afford with the income, so that is called as demand. So demand of a goods depends on certain factors like the price and the price of the other commodities like substitute and complementary goods, and income of the consumer, taste and preference. This is all the factors which impact on the demand. Now we will understand what is demand curve. The graphical representation of various quantities of commodity that a consumer is willing to buy at different prices of the same commodity while other things being equal, which is the factors: price of related goods like substitute and complementary, income, taste and preference. If this all is equal, other thing being equal, then what is the various quantity of commodity the consumer is willing to buy at the different prices. Mostly if the price is high, the consumer is willing to buy less of the quantity. If the price is less, the consumer is willing to buy more of the commodity. So that is why it is downward sloping. If price decreases, demand increases. If price increases, demand decreases. So this relationship between price and quantity demanded of a commodity is called as law of demand. As you can see, the explanation of downward slope, why the demand curve is downward sloping, it is due to the law of diminishing marginal utility. It states that each successive unit of a commodity provides lower marginal utility. That is why it is negative and downward sloping. As with every fall in price, the additional utility is worth less here. So that is the reason the law of demand curve is also negative and downward sloping. Now we are going to start with a new concept, which is cardinal utility analysis. As cardinal utility was easy to understand, but it has various drawbacks because we cannot calculate the utility in numbers in real life. So here comes, under ordinal utility analysis, we come to a theory, indifference curve, where we can rank various alternative combination in term of having less or more utility or in term of having less or more satisfaction. So now what is indifference curve? A consumer preference over the set of available bundle can be represented in a diagram. For example, if the consumer is preferring more of good Y and this much of goods X, this is one combination, and this much of goods Y and this much of good X, this is the other combination, and lesser of the good Y and more of the good X is the other combination. So this point A, B and C, though this is the various bundle of combination, but it gives the same level of satisfaction to the consumer. Though it is of different combination, but the satisfaction is indifferent. So that is why it is called as indifference curve. Here the consumer is said to be indifferent. The different bundles, because each bundles give same level of satisfaction. The various combination of two goods give the consumer same level of satisfaction is called as indifference curve. Indifference curve slopes downward. In order to get some commodity extra, the other commodity has to give up, but the total utility level remains same, is the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Here, why does the indifference curve again slopes downward? It is due to the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. So now we'll understand what is MRS. Still here we have completed with the answer of indifference curve. Now here we need to understand the topic, law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Why this is arising? Because the indifference curve always slopes downward from left to right, and it is convex in nature. Why is it so? It is due to the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Now we need to understand what is the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Marginal rate of substitution means if you want to purchase more of Y quantity, goods, then you have to give up some of the x goods. Okay, so for example, there are various combination a b c d. So this is the quantity of banana. If you purchase one banana, then you are purchasing 15 mangoes. Now what you want to, you are increasing the quantity of banana, so you have to give up the quantity of mangoes. Similarly, when you are purchasing 3 quantity of banana, then you have to give up 2 quantity of mangoes, so that is why it is 10 now. And if you have to increase one more to the banana, then you have to give up one more of the mangoes. So here you can see 12 minus 15 3. Okay, 2 minus 1 1. Okay, and then 10 minus 12 2, 3 minus 2 1, 9 minus 10 1, and 4 minus 3 1. Here you can see the MRS is decreasing. 3 is to 1, 2 is to 1, and 1 is to 1. So with every increase in the consumption in the quantity of the commodity of banana, the mango quantity has to sacrificed. So this is the marginal rate of substitution. With every additional consumption of banana, marginal utility falls. The tendency of marginal rate of substitution to fall with every increase of quantity of banana is law of diminishing marginal rate of utility. The additional consumption of mangoes, it is getting fall with every increase of the quantity of banana. So that is the reason it is the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Okay, now we'll understand the shape of indifference curve, why it is convex. In case if it has perfect substitute, then MRS does not diminish it and will not have the convex shape. We will have a straight line. Example, combination A B C D. There is a 5 rupee coin note, 1 2 3 4. 5 rupee, this is currency note, this is coins. Okay, if you have 1 5 rupee currency and 8 rupee coins, now you exchange it with 2 5 rupee currency note and you have 7 5 rupee coins, and you increase your currency note to 3 and you decrease your coins to 6. But here you can see MRS 7 minus 8 1, 2 minus 1 1, 6 minus 7 1, and 3 minus 2 1, 5 minus 6 1, and 4 minus 3 1. So here you can see anyhow it is what it is same. MRS is here same. It means if we have perfect substitute, then the indifference curve shape will remain straight line. Okay, the indifference curve will be straight line only if we have perfect substitute. If we don't have perfect substitute, then the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution will imply. Now we'll understand what is indifference map. The higher level of satisfaction, the higher level of indifference curve, the higher level of satisfaction. This is nothing but the consumption bundle. The consumer will prefer overall the bundles can be represented by the family of indifference curve. So how the consumer will always prefer the consumption bundle, whichever gives him the higher level of satisfaction. This is the indifference map of the consumer, as all the points on an indifference curve represent various bundles. So every indifference curve represent various level of consumption bundle, which gives some satisfaction to the consumer. Now we'll understand what is monotonic preference. So this imply in any two indifference curve, the bundle on the one which lies above is always preferred than the one which is lies below. The consumer will always prefer this bundle over this. For example, if A has 2 apple and 3 banana and B has 2 apple and 2 banana, then the consumer will always prefer A over B. So this is called as monotonic preference.